This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter, batch churned from single origin cream.
We've got a culturing process, a fermenting process, an aging process. So the butter will taste very different than, I guess, the average supermarket butter. I like to say we make butter makers butter. Like, this is the sort of butter makers would like to eat, simply because of the slow process in which we ferment and age and get the flavour into it. You know, the natural fermentation that gets all the flavours into the cream, and then once you churn it, you end up with this really rich, flavoursome butter that evolves and changes because it's a live culture that's in the butter as well.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
I think it's like how it's different every day. The sort of pleasure I get from doing the best I can, because it's tiring. There's no one's slapping you on the back at the end of the day. It's more what you get out of it. So what you put into it, what you get out of it. So you go into work, it's fun.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Franco Michienzi has been looking after people in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada for many years. He has earned his place in the top tier of wine professionals in the city. In fact, he was named Vancouver Magazine's 2023 Sommelier of the Year. Today you'll find him pouring wine at Elisas. It's a steakhouse, and he pours some pretty amazing vino. Hi, Franco. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is so exciting.
Oh, I am thrilled that you said yes. It's been an eon since we've spoken, over a decade, and I'm just thrilled that you are going to spend a little bit of time with us and that you're drinking some Australian Chardonnay.
Well, I had to pull something out of my cellar for this.
Well, I'm very honoured. Franco, take us back to your first memory of wine. What got you into this whole business?
First memory of wine, or the wine industry? Like, I remember growing up, there's always wine on the table, right? Dad would have a glass of wine, Grandpa would have a glass of wine. You know, they put a little bit of water in it, some ice cubes, and you'd have wine with the family. But the real sort of, everyone has an aha wine. It's like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is wine. It was probably back in, I would say, early 2000s maybe. It was just, I always worked in the service industry, but it was just sort of making money and hanging out and skiing. But it was more of a, I had the 85 Salon. Someone handed me a glass. Tom was like, here, taste this. And you taste it, you're like, what is this? You're like, what did you just hand me? And he's like, that's champagne. That's, iconic. And he's like, okay, cool. So literally the next night, the same guest came back in, and they had the 88 Salon, and they handed me a glass, and I tasted it. I'm like, and I was hooked. It was just unbelievable, right? You're like, how can wine be, this is, back then was the early 2000s. So that was, your 15-year-old champagne. You're like, holy crap, how is this so good? So yeah, that was my sort of aha wines, I guess. But yeah, it was incredible.
Gosh, and I mean, starting with Salon, you really, you raised the bar quite high, didn't you?
Exactly. I am a little spoiled.
I love that. So you decided perhaps that this was something that interested you. How did you go about, getting into hospitality, and what was the first job that you kind of took?
I've been in hospitality probably forever. When I was 16, I needed some cash, and I was, a kid growing up in Ontario, and I was a dishwasher for a couple months, which is the hardest job in a restaurant. If you've ever done it or watched you work, those guys are crazy hard workers. But yeah, I worked as a dishwasher for a bit, didn't really like it, and then went back to school. I was in high school. And the next summer, I got offered a job as a busboy at my friend's Mexican restaurant. And that was just the start of it. Just the people, and it's just high octane, super busy. And I love the pace and love the people, and the people we work with. And it's always fun.
Yeah, we were just discussing earlier just about how there's nothing quite like the rush and adrenaline and set of skills that you acquire in a restaurant, and certainly at the pace that it runs. You tell me about your first position at Araxi, because was that kind of the start of a professional career in hospitality?
Yeah, that was definitely the step up. I worked at other like casual places that were service was not really is more just getting people fed, right? Then moved to Araxi, and that's where, sort of learned more of the proper service of wine, proper service of food. It was sort of, it built from there, and it was amazing. Like people that were working there were so just understanding that realized that this was my real first proper service job, and they was just learned so much from these people. So it was great.
Australians know Araxi, I think, mostly because of Whistler, and I apologise in advance for some of the Australians that you do meet in Whistler, because you tend to get the worst of them. But Araxi has a wonderful reputation and is also part of the Top Table group, which you now will continue to work for. Tell me a little bit about your time at West Restaurant. You were there from 2007 till 2011, around about? 11,
yeah. So it was, when was 2007, moved from Whistler to Vancouver. Thought, it's time to grow up, stop being a ski bum, and then really sort of focus on if I want to make that next step. And sort of basically started taking wine courses in, 2007, 2008. Did my WSET working at West. Just started my WSET working at West, and working with Corey and working with Owen, who actually still works for Top Table. Those guys are like, once again, these guys are all professionals, and they want to see people do their best. And it was, I'd learned every day I went into work, I learned something, either whether it was from Hawk or from Corey or from Owen, or it was awesome. It was such a great place to build your knowledge, because that's what it is. You're building your knowledge. It's same with wine, right? You need to build that sort of repertoire, and you can't just jump into it, right? You need some experience. So.
Absolutely. To fill in the listeners, we actually met working at West Restaurant back in the day. But why I wanted to bring that up was because we have quite a different system in hospitality than you do in Canada. And what I was absolutely blown away by when I started at West was I was very junior. I'd worked at, one fine dining restaurant before, but it was in America. And I couldn't believe that every single senior waiter there had the wine knowledge that they did. Their cocktail, their spirit knowledge, the drink knowledge, and the food knowledge was at like another level that I'd never experienced before. And it was thanks to yourself and Corey and Hao Young and David and Owen that I couldn't believe. I was like, who are these people and how do they know so much about absolutely everything? And then, the passion that you would show when you'd talk about a wine, when you'd sit down and we'd count the tips out, was what hooked me in. And I was like, I want to do this one day. And look, it took me a long time to get to that level. But just incredible, the passion that everybody showed. And I think it says a lot about Canadian hospitality as well, that when you do something, you really throw yourselves right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes more than just a job, because it's like, you want to have something worthwhile to do. And it's, for me, mentorship is a big part of what I'm trying to do now. But it's saying that's what I was shown when I was coming up and learning. And there's no sense of, I'm better than you. There's no sense of rivalry. It's more of it's a team. Your team. If you guys if the restaurant wants to succeed, you need to be a team, because you make money, I make money, the restaurant makes money. If it's all mercenaries, then it doesn't work. The restaurant doesn't last. The servers don't last. You lose. There's no sort of growth in the place. So it's really nice to see that sort of mentorship in the program, and what I want to do at Elisa, because it meant so much to me, and I think I want to pass that along, right?
I always remember fondly as well that you had a really good relationship with some of the kind of busboys and the people that I think that I can't even remember the terminology now, but the other people that kind of, were there to kind of reset tables for you. And you always had a really strong relationship with the everybody that you worked with. And I always admired that.
Well, yeah, it's like I said, it's part of the team. If I look at it, if there's the SAs, called the service assistant SAs, if they were, if they have to choose a table to set, right, they would pick the people that were nice to them. Like they're young kids, right? They're not impressionable, but they're there to help, and they want to be part of the team. And if they help out someone that they like, it's makes them closer knit. And not that they wouldn't help anyone else out, but I'm saying if they're making a choice. But it's the same thing as, like I said before, it's showing people, that teamship, and that's team building, and you want to be part of our team. And it's easier to work with someone that likes you and have fun with, and someone that's sort of not want to be there and not part of the team. I know you get more with a carrot than you do with a stick, I think.
Yeah, well said. Now, you helped open Hawksworth when it opened, and that was opening just as I was leaving. So in 2011, and then you became head sommelier in 2016. What was that process like of kind of helping to open a restaurant and rising into the ranks of the head sommelier?
Well, it was amazing. Great place to work. So it was started there as a junior somm. Just sort of these guys that were there were just like the best somms in Vancouver were working at the restaurant, and they're like, you can be a junior somm and learn from us. Pour some wines by the glass. You can't really do much else because you're not kind of qualified. So I was just finishing my diploma. And once again, these guys are just amazing. So every cool bottle they would open, we would taste. Like, here, taste this, taste this, taste. You just taste. We would taste 50 wines a night. And it just built and built and built and built. And finally, after time, we're like, you know what? You know enough about the list that you can maybe go out there and pour some wines for our tasting menu. So you'd get your tasting menu, you'd learn the wine, you'd learn the dish, and then sort of just built from there. And by the end of it, it was, I was doing all the tasting with the agents, and then I would make my suggestions, the purchasing suggestions, and then the wine director would decide which ones to put on the list. It was great because the wines he didn't want on the list, he would tell me why. Okay, this wine is too similar to this wine, or this wine is, we already have a wine like that. We already have a wine that's priced there. So it was really, really, like, once again, learning from like the best. Like, it was incredible.
I mean, in terms of just saying that you just said that you were finishing a diploma and you were still a junior somm, like, that kind of blows my mind, because by that stage, your wine knowledge is really high. So it goes to show, just how important it is to kind of have that rite of passage till, there's a certain level that you can step up and say, okay, now you're more qualified. But it's not just, knowledge about all wines. It's also knowledge of the list and the restaurant you're working at, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because you need to know producers, you need to know vintage, you need to, everyone's just graduating and gets their diploma, so much knowledge. They work so hard to get it. But for me, that's just the start. Like, you know what I mean? You need to learn producers, you need to learn, within that, vintage variation, you know what I mean? And being able to taste all these really cool wines you won't be able to taste anywhere else. Right. So you have to start building that Rolodex. I call it a Rolodex, like a mental Rolodex of wines you've tasted, right? So that's sort of, is this a good bottle? Is this a bad bottle? Because nowadays wine is getting crazy expensive, right? So you do your diploma. How often do you get to taste First Growth? How often do you get to taste, Grand Cru Burgundy nowadays? You don't, unless you work in a place that opens them, right? So you need to build that repertoire. So you get handed a bottle, you have to know how to treat it, is it a good bottle, is it faulted, you have all those things that race through your head as you're opening it, and you don't get that by writing an exam.
No, you certainly don't. There's definitely so much to learn in the field. Tell me about your first moment when you got the position of head sommelier. Do you have a moment that you remember, feeling really proud, or where you kind of pinched yourself and was like, oh my God, I'm in charge of this now?
Not really. It was more of like I said, it was such a team. We had such a great somm team at Hawksworth. It was amazing. We would do blind tastings. We would, you'd be humbled because you got it wrong, and then there'd be no mocking. No, you'd learn stuff. I didn't feel like their boss. That's probably the biggest thing, because I wasn't really. It was more of a team thing. I was just the one that had the title. It was, it's such a team. It was everyone that works there right now is either a buyer or a head som at another restaurant or wine director at another restaurant. So it's really cool.
That's probably the most Canadian response of anything I've ever heard, but incredibly humble.
But dude, it's true though. In that instant, literally everyone there that I work with is either a wine director or a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a buyer for someone.
Well, yeah, that just goes to show how amazing that the leadership and the team spirit is, because you've produced wonderful wine professionals that then elevate the rest of the city, which is really exciting. But I want to talk a little bit about Elisas, because you have over 6,000 bottles. That blew my mind when I first read that. And I was almost late to the podcast because I was, page 63 of your wine list. And completely I can just lose myself looking at a list.
Yeah, no, it was fun building that list. It is fun building that. It's always changing, which I like. I taste wines I taste literally 50 wines a day. So you taste and you add wines, you take off wines. And I was told to have, they literally said kid in the candy store, because our owners do have, our backing. They wanted to build a world-class wine list. That was their mandate was, we're going to open a restaurant. It's going to be the best steakhouse in the city, and we want to have a world-class wine list. Can you do that? I'm like, yeah, no pressure. But yeah, so it's like zero pressure. And in BC, it's really hard to get some of these producers. So it takes months and months and months to get these wines into the province, and it's been a journey. It's been, when we opened, I was asking about wines, and they're literally just getting back into the market now. So it's definitely a big process here, but it is so much fun. It is so much fun because it's always changing and unique.
Talk to me a little bit about balancing, your local British Columbia wines and Canadian wines for that matter, and also your international offering.
Well, it's BC wines. They're honestly getting a little expensive for what they're, and I honestly think they have to be careful with their pricing, because now you're competing with the rest of the world. Right, when they reach a certain price, the wines are getting a lot better. Their quality is literally in the last 10 years, their quality has at least doubled. But it's still, because of the pricing, it's harder to. Someone's going to come in and want a Gruner from either BC or from Austria, and they're the same price. Really hard to. And it's when the quality is a little better in Austria, it's hard for me as a professional to say, listen, you should drink the BC because you're from BC. I want them to have the best wine possible for the money. So it's what would I go to? So it's really hard. Some of the producers they're friends of mine, and I tell them your prices. Some of them are too high. I'm like, well, I get it. It costs a lot of money to make wine, especially in Canada. But I think they need to be careful with their pricing. Otherwise, the wines are incredibly delicious.
I love, BC wines, and I think that we don't see a lot here in Australia. The last time I tried a wine from BC was when DJ Kearney was out, and she brought some wine. But it's been a long time since I've seen some of them. And looking through your list, I was just having a little laugh because I remember doing a blending class that I think you invited me to, and it was through Laughingstock Vineyards. And I know that they got sold, but it's nice to see that you've got their little Pinot Gris by the glass. I just went, oh my gosh, they're still around, and that's fantastic. But you've got a great representation, in particularly by the glass, on your list. And it's really nice to see some of those local wines. What's, when your guests come in, is it kind of 80% international, 20% local? What are people drinking?
Or what are they drinking, or what are our guests? Are they?
Yeah, what are your guests drinking?
What are our guests drinking? They're drinking. A lot of them are asking for, because we've literally in the last 5 years we've built a great team, and they literally ask what should I drink? This is what I like. This is my budget. What should I drink? So we take them all over. So they're drinking. We bring them what they want, but we're taking them all over. We bring them. If they want something local, we'll take them local. If they want something international, we'll take them international. It's sort of, we sell a lot of, we don't sell a ton of BC wines in general, but the ones we do, we try to have the best wines available for them, because for me, it matches my list.
And tell me, in terms of, because essentially you are a very modern version of a kind of a steakhouse, in terms of kind of the wines from BC, someone comes in and they're having a delicious, juicy T-bone or, sirloin, where would you go, and in terms of kind of drinking BC wine with some of those kind of meatier dishes? What's a suggestion? Just out of interest, because, we have a lot of Australians that travel that way, and it'd be nice to know kind of what they should be looking for.
Because of our climate, I would probably steer away from Cabernet because it's long ripening and takes a lot to get there. I would do a blend, probably a Merlot blend, or actually Cab Franc or Syrah. Both those grapes grow really well in BC. So I would probably do Cab Franc because I like the savoriness of freshness that's in there. And you still get nice robust, a little bit of punch to it. So I would probably lean towards Cab Franc.
I love Cabernet Franc, and it is normally for me it's a bit of a hand sell. Either people, they religiously drink the kind of Loire styles and they love them, or it sometimes is a bit of a hand sell. Do you still refer to some of your blends as Meritage blends?
I don't. No. They're just blends. There very few wineries have a Meritage blend now. They're more blends because they decided, we need to add something else besides the grapes that are in a Meritage. They need, oh my God, I need to add Syrah, I need to add deeper dough to make it a little bit bigger. Because it kind of limits what you can put in it if you want to actually label it Meritage.
Tell me about the importance of how you consider food and the location of your food, where it's grown, the provenance. For me, it was something that really took me by surprise in Vancouver, that everybody is so ingrained in where their food comes from, why, who grows it. Tell me the importance of knowing the menu and knowing the flavors when it comes to serving wine in a restaurant.
Oh, I think that's people go to restaurants for food. Like very few people come to our restaurant looking just for wine, right? So they come in, they know our food is sourced. Like actually our menu, I'm not sure, I haven't seen it, but on the back side of one of our menu inserts lists the location of where we source all our meat. So if we have a whole scene from California, there's a map of California, it shows exactly where it's from. There's a blurb about the producer. So and then everything else on the menu lists where the food is from. So this lettuce from Hannibal Farms, or this olive oil is from Spain, and they give you the producer. I think people want to know where their food comes from because it makes there a little more of a connection, and that shows that we care. Like we care where it comes from. So
yeah, I mean, more than almost, I think, any place I visited, I think do Vancouverans? No, what we call you, Canucks? I don't know what we call you, but you care very much about the provenance and its effect on the world in general and the future of sustainability. And I'm talking to someone, Franco, you, who has a hydroponic growing system for your lettuce in your own house.
You're right. Absolutely. It's everyone cares. Like I think it's important to, because we have kids, it's important to know where food comes from. Like it doesn't come from the grocery store. You know what I mean? Peas don't come from a can. You know what I mean? It actually comes from a plant, right? Like so there are some people that don't. If you actually live in a big city, you sort of get you forget where this stuff comes from. So it's for me, it's trying to teach these guys where it's from and how hard it is to grow and don't take these things for granted, because what happens, we run out of lettuce one day, or where does it come from? So for me it's very important to show these guys, my kids, where it all happens.
Yeah, very much so. And you're right. When you do live in a city, it's very easy to forget because it's not part of our daily life to see, a whole beast being broken down. Unless you're lucky and you work in a restaurant, you might get to see that. But
yeah, if you don't know where food comes from, like, where does steak come from? Well, it comes from the fridge. Right? Yeah. You have no idea.
How disturbing.
Well, no, but you're like a little kid is like, it comes from the fridge. Where else would it come from?
Yeah. Very true. Tell me a little bit about the greater beverage scene in Vancouver, because it is a city that's known for some of the most amazing bars, wonderful cocktails. Tell me about kind of, the offering that you have at Elisas in terms of the beverage program other than wine.
Oh yeah, those guys behind the bar, we try to have items behind the bar, like our wine list, where no one else has in the city. So if you want to come in and you want Macallan 30, you can get it. If you want, rare cask, you can get it. Just other than spirits, their cocktail program changes seasonally. And we're actually making a spring change this week, but cocktails are always evolving for what the guest wants. If someone wants, we're sort of switching a little bit. We have a couple lower alcohol cocktails going on the list, which people have, asked about. And it's always evolving to what people want, because you can't force people to drink stuff they don't want, because it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, very true. I don't think I've known a city that has such an amazing bar/wood culture of going and sitting and chatting to bartenders, and the magic that they can create while they're talking to you and 20 other people and serving them drinks at the same time. Where do you drink at when you're in the city? What do you do after service? I'm sure that you probably go home and sleep, but if you were to go out, where would you be going?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'd literally just come home and go to bed, because it's these last, like I said, since we opened to recently, it's been nonstop at our restaurant. If I was to go out, I would probably go to Homer Street and have a nice cold beer. Or when I get home, I'll have a big bourbon. Just
a bourbon drinker.
Yeah.
I think I knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, if I went out, it's probably Homer Street, because it's literally right there. Probably that's the only place I really have been recently. Sometimes we go to Blue Water Cafe, which is literally right across the street from her. But it's our sister restaurant, so I try not to go in there too often.
It's hard sometimes, though, isn't it? When you just think, I'm craving some of their gorgeous seafood, and I really
exactly.
Franco, when you talk about the list, what are you really passionate about on your wine list? I can see that your grower champagne or your champagne list is pretty sexy, and I know that you've always had a love of bubbles, but what else are you really passionate about in terms of some of those pages on your wine list?
Probably Burgundy, red and white. They just work so well with a lot of our food. So we have a even though we're a steakhouse, we do have a lot of seafood options. So white Burgundy it drinks so well with some of those things. And then red Burgundy, if you don't want, it works with, especially if you have a table of 5 or 6 people, they're all having a different thing. We do have some grilled fish on the menu. Burgundy just works so well with all those items. So it's probably the biggest section, other than California Cabernet, which is I have to have because it's a steakhouse. But those are my big areas, because when we were opening, the president of the company is like, no one drinks Burgundy at a steakhouse, and then those are literally our 2 biggest, well, other than Cali Cab, 2 biggest sellers in the restaurant. So,
and if no one else drinks it, we certainly will drink it, won't we?
Oh my God! Yeah.
The prices are crazy. Like, my mind boggles. In Australia, we have to pay a 29% what we call wet tax, which is an import tax, which is huge when it comes to looking at prices for Burgundy. And I was having a little look at yours and just swooning.
Yeah, it's even in BC, it's super hard to find, but the price has gone like through the roof. Like, it's one producer literally doubled in 1 year. One, because they're becoming super popular, Bernard Bonin, and secondly, because that's what they're charging now.
And there's that lack of ability to just make more wine, isn't there? Because there's only so much you can do with, low yielding grapes. Yeah, I'm always feeling at a kind of, torn between wanting to shout from the rooftops about some producers and then wanting to not tell anybody, just to keep the prices down and allow myself to be able to still buy some.
Yeah, but that's the rest of the world is already going. If you're liking something, someone else is loving it, and it's not. you can't keep stuff secret. I wish we could. So many producers. Damn it. Price went up again.
So true. Franco, tell me a little bit about your impressions of Australian wine, and you do have some great representations on the list. What are Canadians, what is their impressions of Australian wine, and what do they want to drink from Australia?
I think there's two types that they have that sort of, unfortunately, the big, bold, brash Australian reds and whites, which is unfortunate because that's not anything of what's coming out of the country now. There's so many great Chardonnay producers and Pinot Noir producers, and people are leaning towards lighter, fresher, brighter wines, which are exactly what Australia's doing. So it's fun speaking to those people when I'm like, people ask me what should I drink, and I suggest in Australia, like, oh no, too big. I'm like, trust me, just try this, and they're like, oh my god, it's like Burgundy but cheaper. I'm like, yes.
That's good to hear, because it is hard depending on what's imported into the country. Some of the smaller guys don't always have as good representation, and it's interesting always to hear or to see what people are listing and what people want to drink. And I think you're drinking a little Chardonnay at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, Garage East. Yeah, the Merrick's Vineyard. They're small. Like, it's what we get here. All the good stuff is it gets snapped up real quick and it's gone, and then nothing comes for like 2 vintages, like Kuyong or Sorenberg or all the fun stuff. It just disappears. 10 minutes by tractor. All that stuff just literally 3 6-packs will arrive and it's gone.
Yeah, we do tend to drink a lot of our own wine, and so you can blame us a little bit for that. But, to those labels that you mentioned, there is a need, so they need to consider that. And it's good to know that, especially, Sorenberg, I don't want to share that with anybody, so.
No, I know. Yeah, it's like, literally, I think 4 6-packs of Chardonnay came to BC this year.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing for how big BC is and how many incredible restaurants you have. Franco, what do you love every day about your job? What keeps you still working on a restaurant floor, still running around, busy beyond belief, working, I don't know how many hours you work. What do you love about it?
I think it's like how it's different every day, and the sort of pleasure I get from doing the best I can, because it's tiring. There's no one's slapping you on the back at the end of the day. It's more what you get out of it. So what you put into it, what you get out of it. So you go into work, it's fun. Like it's challenging. There's never an end to it, which I like.
Yeah, it is different every day because people are different every day, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely they are.
Can be some of the best parts and some of the most frustrating parts too, because you think you know somebody, you think you know.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, Tom. It's difficult sometimes, but for the most part, the 99.9% of the people that come in, they're amazing. They love it. Then they're going to come back.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. With service like you provide, I'm sure they definitely will. I want to ask you, at West there was a gentleman, and I'm ashamed because I've forgotten his name, but he used to come in on his own quite a lot. He would always drink excellent. He would drink Burgundy or Piedmont, Barolo, and he'd only ever have a glass, and he'd always leave us the rest of the bottle. Do you remember his name?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember his name. I know exactly who you're talking about. He was
the most incredible guest, and he just had so much joy. He would come in and he would order more food than he ever needed. He'd order a cocktail of some kind, whatever the bartender wanted to make, and then he'd order, a beautiful bottle of white Burgundy, an amazing bottle of red Burgundy. He'd have a glass each, and then he'd leave us the rest. And I'll never forget, on one of our staff parties, he came in the night before and he ordered for 4 of his friends, and they drank amazing champagne and Burgundy all night. And then he asked, did you guys get to try some of the wines? And we said, I think Owen, the sommelier, got to have a sip. And then he said, yeah, we checked that they weren't cork. And then he called up that night and said, I'm so sorry, I'm so rude. Make sure that you charge me for 2 bottles of everything I had tonight, and you guys drink them on your staff party.
Yeah, he was. I can picture his face. I don't remember his name though. Yeah, he was.
Yes, isn't that terrible? Oh, I just always thought about him. I just thought that gentleman was just the most generous and kind man, and it was such a pleasure to look after him. I had lots of fond memories about him. I'll have to ask Christy. She might know. Anyway, Franco, we're at that point where I want to ask, if you've only got 3 drinks to your desert island or 3 drinks on the last night on Earth, what are you going to drink and why?
I would drink paper planes because they're easy to make. You can batch them in an Nalgene and you can take them wherever you want to go.
Paper planes? I don't know what that is.
Paper planes, a cocktail. It's equal parts bourbon, Aperol, Amaro, and lemon juice.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. All the things I love.
It is absolutely delicious. Shaken over ice, strained. It's amazing. Because, we batch them in an Nalgene and you can quickly make lots. I would also, what else would I drink? I would drink white Burgundy. I don't think I'd pick a producer because they're all, the ones I have in my cellar are all delicious. And then a mixtures bourbon because it's a touch sweet. It just, for me it's perfect bourbon because it has that sweetness and that toastiness and yeah. Probably that.
And it's a sipper, isn't it? When you've got really good bourbon, you can just sit and kind of, yeah.
Exactly. It's so good.
Well, 3 really interesting drinks. I'm a little ashamed that I didn't know about this cocktail, but that's why I'm speaking to you, because I get to learn new things. Franco, it's been such a joy to reconnect with you, to hear all about what's happening over in Vancouver. And congratulations on being Vancouver Magazine's 2023 Sommelier Extraordinaire. That is really something you should be proud of, and I was just so thrilled to see your face beaming from that photo, and I was just made me all warm and cuddly inside.
Thanks very much. It's so great to be included with all the people that have won it before. It's just like Owen's won it, some other friends. Our friend Bryant has won it. It's all these people that I know have won this award, so it's kind of nice to be included in that list. Oh,
well, no doubt you worked your bottom off to get there, and it's lovely to see that acknowledgement. But thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that we get to speak another time. Even better if we get to see each other in the flesh. You never know. The wine community does tend to come together on junkets and things, so you never know.
That'd be amazing. I need to get to Australia.
You definitely do, and I can show you some more of these producers that you can't get your hands on.
Thanks. Bring it home with me.
Exactly. Thank you, Franco. Cheers to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram at overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.